County, we're seeing the number of power outages really start to jump up. So there's a look at radar right now. There's the city of Houston. So here is the 610 loop. Okay, so we're looking really pretty much at just a view of 610 and what's going on inside the loop. Torrential rainfall right now north of downtown as you get into the Heights, up towards even parts of Midtown here. A couple lightning strikes, a lot of red shading, and wherever you see the areas of magenta, that indicates we're seeing some areas of maybe some small hail. As we go a little farther towards the north and east, up towards Jacinto City, Beaumont Place, East Houston, pretty much in between Highway 90 and the East Tex Freeway. A couple of spotty downpours, nothing really severe here. A couple lightning strikes as well. This is where the real core of things is happening, up towards Aldine. As you go up towards the Beltway, you can see North Houston, Jersey Village, down towards Roslyn, Highland Heights, just getting clobbered right now with rainfall. Couple lightning strikes. The storm certainly is not as electric as it was, let's say, about an hour or two ago when it was back across Grimes County. But again, a lot of dark red shading here and even a couple areas of magenta indicating where we could be maybe seeing some pea to penny-sized hail. Hail really is not the big issue with this. It is the wind. So I've switched over our radar from rainfall rates to wind speeds. And this is our color table. It goes from green all the way, or rather from blue and green all the way over to red. So green indicates winds that are going towards the radar. Red indicates winds that are going away from the radar. And the radar sight is down off to this direction. So green is all wind moving towards that radar site, which is down towards the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And wherever you see the brighter greens, that indicates we're seeing some pretty strong winds here, in excess of 40 and 50 miles per hour. In fact, some of us getting close to seeing 55-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That's just below severe thunderstorm threshold. That's 58-mile-per-hour wind. But you have to understand that with this heavy rain that's associated with this storm, this can actually take these winds that are in the storm and pull them down to the ground. So the momentum of the rainfall falling out of the sky is actually strong enough to take those really strong winds that are pushing this storm towards the south and east and bring that wind to the surface. And when that happens, the wind accelerates. So we can see these 50 to 55 mile per hour wind gusts jump to 60 and 65 miles per hour. And that's what this severe thunderstorm warning is in effect for. So some really strong winds, especially here from Houston going north towards Bush. We got a few messages on Twitter from Spring saying that the winds were really whipping up there, that the power had flashed on and off. We're getting reports of power outages up towards the Cypress area. Last we heard from CenterPoint Energy, they've got 32,000 outages. So as this line continues to move across Harris County, expect that number to go up as these 40, 45, 50, 60 mile per hour winds move across the city. The highest winds right now up towards Highland Heights. Actually, as we take a look at just how high those are, radar estimating getting close to 60 miles per hour. So whenever you start to go from that green color towards the brighter color, getting into the blues, that's when those winds start to get above the 60 mile per hour threshold, again, indicating severe winds. So again, not quite as an electric storm as it was, but just tremendous amounts of rainfall here from Janetta through Hunters Creek, along and south of I-10 and Highway 90, US 90 there, Highway 6 to 610 and the Beltway. This is where we're seeing some of the worst of it, pretty much right over the Beltway. And US 90 is where it's just coming down like cats and dogs right now from Janetta through Alief. So places like Beech Nut Street in Alief, getting down to Meadows Place. Just tremendous amounts of rainfall in these spots. And then as we go farther south and west here, along the Southwest Freeway through Sugar Land, so along 69 here into Richmond, Greatwood, just a lot of heavy rainfall. Again, not quite as much lightning as we were seeing, which is a sign that the storm is probably starting to weaken just a little bit. We're seeing a lot of rainfall, we're seeing really strong winds, but we're not seeing the big lightning flashes, which means I don't think this storm is going to continue to strengthen anymore. I think it's probably close to its peak strength at this point. But places like Pecan Grove, getting out towards Foster, the rain is starting to very, very gradually wind down for Foster, for Weston Lakes, for Orchard. But again, Pecan Grove seeing quite a few lightning strikes and heavy rain. And Sugarland now coming in with several lightning strikes, and also a little bit of that magenta shading. That magenta shading indicative of maybe some pea-sized hail, some penny-sized hail. So out towards Creek Bend Drive, up to the Southwest Freeway, Lexington Boulevard, up towards William Trace Boulevard. This is where some of the worst of it is moving right now, along Highway 6 and Lexington Boulevard, where we're maybe seeing some pea-sized hail, a lot of lightning strikes there. Once you get towards the west side of Highway 6, that's where things are improving. So we're seeing the rainfall rates maybe diminish a little bit. We're not seeing the potential for some small hail, but maybe some breezy conditions out there as well. So as we widen the shot and we put this into motion, you can see this looks pretty impressive in the last hour. And since then, I think the worst of it is probably from Alief, cutting towards the north side of Houston, coming into downtown right now, and then going up 45 towards, let's say, the Aldine area. The lightning strike count, though, is down considerably. That's a good sign. I think the storm is starting to lose its organization. But, again, when we put on velocity, which indicates wind speeds, the worst of it right now is really in this area that I've circled. And when we actually do a deeper dive into how strong those winds are, we see values just over 50 miles per hour, in the 50 to 60 mile per hour range. So that is where we are seeing the most significant part of the storm, just north of downtown, Highland Heights, up towards Hawthorne Place here. So pretty much in between 290 and 45. Moving now towards the Hardy Toll Road. That brighter blue there, that brighter, teal color, that indicates where we're seeing the strongest winds. And those could be, that could lead to some damage. We could see tree branches down. We could see the potential for some power lines down. Power outages, a possibility there from Highland Village all the way into Hawthorne Place, crossing over the Hardy Toll Road, and eventually the East Tex Freeway, getting close to East Houston there. So if you live along, let's see, if you live along Aldine Mail Road and point south towards Tidwell Road, this is where we're going to be seeing, I think, the worst corridor of it. So again, Aldine Mail Road, Tidwell Road, and then this is going to continue to push off towards the east there. But Highland Village getting it the worst right now. City of Houston itself, as we get you into downtown, we're seeing some pretty gusty winds down here as well, and even south side of downtown towards, let's say, places like Riverside Terrace. Winds in that area, again, generally between 50 and 60 miles per hour. So this is some of the worst of it. Now just coming out of Bel Air, Brookhaven, Westwood Park, again, winds down here also very strong, 50, 60 miles per hour. So we're right at that severe thunderstorm warning threshold. And that's why we do have that warning in place. This is going to move out of here pretty fast, though. Storm's moving at about 25 to 30 miles per hour, so I'd expect the winds to die down within about 5 minutes after they begin in your area. But again, with the saturated ground and with prolonged winds, it's not going to be difficult to take some trees down, especially with shallow root systems, and that's where power outages could become a big concern for us. So now this is starting to approach. Next up is going to be Harrisburg, Galena Park, Jacinto City, eventually out towards places like Baytown as you get into Pasadena, if it holds together. So that's much farther out here. Okay. Out towards Deer Park, LaPorte, Hobby Airport, pretty strong area of wind there out towards the neighborhood of Golf Crest. So pretty much following Texas 225. So I'll just orientate myself here. So you get off the loop and you get onto 225. I think that's where you're going to see the strongest corridor of winds here on the south side of the city. So from Golf Crest to Allendale, eventually to Pasadena if it holds together. And again, this is starting to show some signs of weakening, but this is where the strongest winds will be as that storm begins to weaken gradually, kind of fall apart. And that's going to be the trend over the next few hours. It's going to be very gradual, though. This storm has done a very good job of holding together over the last few hours. So again, what we're looking at here, typically it's a rotation product. What it's showing us, though, on the raw level is wind. So we use wind moving in different directions to diagnose rotation, which is why we call this our rotation detector. But it also shows us just what the wind speeds are doing. So we're not expecting tornadoes. We are expecting straight line damaging wind gusts though. So that's what we're looking at. And the way that you use this product at home is you look at the brightest spots on the map. Where are the brightest colors? The brightest colors on this map will show you where the strongest winds are. So we have two different directions of wind possible. You've got wind going away from the radar in red and towards the radar in green. As you get closer to the middle of that scale, that's your 0 mark right there. So when you see gray on this map, that indicates very light winds. As the color gets brighter, you're getting away from 0. That's when those values start to become a lot higher. And again, in this case, north side of the city and south side of the city, 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. And notice where it's starting to bulge out there as well. This is where we could see maybe some locally higher winds right in that area. So moving towards, again, Cloverleaf. As you get out towards Pasadena, this is something we're going to have to keep a close eye on as this storm continues to move off towards the east. This warning is in effect until, let's see, 2:15. So over 3 million people included in this warning. So pretty much the whole city of Houston. So another 30 minutes or so left with this warning as it continues to move off towards the east. So we'll see if it holds together for Crosby and Mont Bellevue, Baytown. We'll be watching. But right now it's Cloverleaf, Pasadena, getting out towards Hobby. Storm's moving over Hobby right now. These are going to be the next areas that we have to keep an eye on. Storm just moved through where the station is here. And as far as I know, things are okay outside, so that's a good sign. But we did have some pretty strong wind gusts here. Let's keep taking a look at the camera shot and see what that looks like. So this is, again, looking at the, this is from, a lot of rain out there. So this is the Southwest Freeway. I believe this is just north of the Loop. So we're looking out towards the north and west here. A couple lightning strikes, blinding rainfall. That's pretty much the name of the game here. Blinding rainfall, gusty winds, couple lightning strikes. It's a good thing that these are not as electric as they were before because you gotta sleep, man. It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. Worst of it's going through downtown right now. Look at that. Franklin Street, Louisiana, Milam, right along Buffalo Bayou here. So here's Memorial Drive. There's Allen Parkway going this way, right? So there's the Bayou, and there's the interstate. There's 45. So here's Louisiana. There's Charter, okay? So the worst of it's on the north side of downtown. So this is where we're seeing the magenta. That's what we look for on this map. So on this map, what the color tells us is the intensity of the rainfall. So red indicates really heavy rain. But when you get into that magenta, that's when we start to cross into the potential for seeing maybe pea-sized hail, maybe penny-sized hail. So south side of downtown, going towards McGowan, going out towards Midtown, you're starting to get out of the worst of it. Worst of it, though, is going to be moving out towards Edo as we get into the next 5 to 10 minutes. In the Heights, we're starting to see improvements. Okay, so from Washington up towards I-10, so Washington Heights, and then getting into the upper Heights here. I mean, it's still raining like crazy. You know, from Studemont back through Yale as you get into Rice Village, but I mean, it's just heavy rain. I mean, there's not even been a lightning strike here in the last 10 minutes. So that's good news. So this rain, good soaking rain for a lot of the city moving through, but the hail, the damage and wind threat, I think, starting to subside. So as we widen things out, let's see if we can check to see how many lightning strikes there have been. Not a lot at all. This is looking pretty weak now. So almost 40 lightning strikes in the last 10 minutes. That's not that many. So, okay, so the worst of this, by zooming out and looking at this, I would say, is going to be from League City up through probably Mont Bellevue, more likely, though, Baytown. And the reason I say that is because it's where the line is starting to kind of push out. So, draw this for you. So again, we look for that Boeing shape. So think of like a bow and arrow, right? So there's your bow that we just drew, and there's the arrow. The arrow represents the wind, and that's what's pushing the bow forward. That's why we call it a bow echo, right? Because it looks like a bow and arrow. So the wind is literally coming down from the top of the storm, and it's pushing out, and that's why you get that feature there. And when we overlay velocity, you can see the little bow signature there, okay, right? So that's what we're watching for right now. So Edo getting in on the worst of it. You can see the winds in here, Galena Park, Gulf Crest, 55, 60, 65 mile per hour winds. So some pretty significant winds in there still. This is right along the Gulf Freeway, pretty much from the camera shot that we were just looking at there with the blinding winds and rainfall. City of Houston, it's still breezy. I think a lot of this window is up in the storm. I think the biggest risk for seeing damaging wind gusts is on that leading edge. Because once we get back into the rain, yeah, it's kind of breezy, but most of that wind is still actually in the storm. I think it's this stuff here, on the very leading edge of the storm that could actually be making it to the surface and doing the most damage. I think we just got a new scan in for velocity. I think the worst of it here is Gulf Crest, Park Place, 65 mile per hour wind gusts. So that's what we're keeping a close eye on. So again, if you're just joining, if you're just logging on, maybe some thunder woke you up, we're watching severe thunderstorms move through the Houston metro. And it's 1:45 in the morning, almost. That's where we're at on this Saturday night. Yeah, really heavy rainfall going down the Gulf Freeway. Look at that. So Park Place, this is pretty much the worst of it right now. Park Place neighborhood, Gulf Crest neighborhood. So Telephone Road, Pecan Park neighborhood, Griggs Road. So I would say from Griggs Road points south. We could be getting, I wouldn't be surprised along Telephone Road to be seeing maybe some pea-sized hail, some penny-sized hail, maybe bigger. Some strong wind gusts as well, 50, 60 mile per hour winds. Wouldn't be surprised to see power out. Do we have a new number on power outages from CenterPoint? See if we can get that number for you. 50,000. Okay, so we went from 30,000 to 50,000. 50,000 customers, not people, customers. So that number, again, we said that's going to keep going up and up here as we go through the next probably 20, 30 minutes as this storm continues to move out towards the east. So if you're watching, maybe plug your phone in, plug your laptop in so you can have a way to, be in touch with family, friends to report power outages because that's what we're dealing with right now. That's going to be the big thing for tonight. So the worst of this, I would say, power outages possible for Pasadena. So get ready. So Pasadena, not out of the question. Allendale, not out of the question. Galena Park, Jacinto City. This is just where we're going to be seeing some of the stronger winds. Yeah, especially South Houston. This area here, out towards Hobby. If you live near Hobby, there's a chance you lose power. So Scranton Street, down towards Genoa, Red Bluff Road, Shaver Street, okay, along Texas 3, so Highway 3, going south of the city. I think these are areas where we're going to see the worst of it. And then farther north, Galena Park, Harrisburg. This area here, Magnolia Park, Clinton Park. Okay, we're seeing winds, again, 60-plus mile per hour winds. You really don't even need 60 mile an hour winds to lose power. So we're kind of like overdoing it here. So still a pretty strong storm. I think the northern edge of the storm is looking a lot weaker. So if you live in Dyersdale, if you live in Atascocita, up towards Bush, Aldine, it's stormy, but it's not, I wouldn't call this severe necessarily just from what I'm seeing here on radar. And they issued this warning a while ago, right? So this looked different when they first issued it back here when the storm was out towards the Beltway on the west side of the city. So that's good news. Again, the storm is starting to weaken a bit, but we are still seeing the strongest of it now just south and east of the city. And going farther south, so places like Brookside Village, Sienna, Friendswood, you're okay. I think down towards Alvin, Friendswood, Manville, you're going to be okay. I mean, everyone's going to be okay, but I think in terms of like power outages and in terms of like, tree branches down, I'm not too worried about these areas. I am more concerned about, if you live around Hobby between 610 and the Beltway, that's where you might run into some issues. Getting out towards, maybe not Alcott, maybe just north of Alcott, between Alcott and Deer Park. I think that's where we're going to see some issues. So that's the latest. That's what we're dealing with right now. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect till, I believe it was 2:15. Another live look here from the Gulf Freeway. A lot of rain, couple lightning strikes. Can't really get a good sense of the wind. I don't see, these big, tall highway lights. I don't see those really swaying too much. So I don't think the winds are too bad here. We don't see the camera moving that much also. But again, I think the worst of it's past this point. So it's really now as you're starting to get towards, I guess, the Beltway on the east side of the city, south and east. So, yeah, that's the worst of it down towards Golf Crest. In fact, let me just quickly we'll check on hail. Okay, new warning just came in. Let's see what this is. Walk off camera for a second. Probably an extension of the severe thunderstorm warning. If I had to guess, let's say, yeah, it continues until 2:15. So that's what we're going with. But the hail there on the screen, you can see Golf Crest. This is not too bad. So this is not too impressive. It's really a windstorm. That's the main driver here. Okay. So we'll widen that shot out again. Yeah, along Highway 3. That's the worst of it right now. So we're going to keep an eye on this. We'll keep watching it for you. Next up, if you're watching and if you live down towards Taylor Lake Village, Sylvan Beach, League City, pretty much along the northwest coast of Trinity Bay. If you live along the northwest shores of Trinity Bay, you're up next for this storm, for the worst of it. And then as this keeps moving east, I think it's going to keep weakening more and more. So we'll keep an eye on it, and if anything changes, we'll jump back on. We'll give you another update.